I was quite afraid to knit from a Korean designer, and I took 4 months to actually choose the yarn. And I'm questioning maybe it was a bad idea. Knitting tutorial is coming with all of the lessons learned. You do feel like you're knitting with luxurious yarn, and I'm going mad because I know I'm not going back. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Nikitinaknits. My name is Evgenia and this is the video where I speak about my finished work, what I've been knitting on recently, my works in progress, some of the acquisitions that I got, and my future cast-ons, what I'm excited to knit up next. So grab your knitting, grab your favorite drink. In my case, I'm having some green tea with jasmine, and let's begin with my first finished work that I'm so excited about. I don't even know where to start. I just want to say first that I'm about to show you the finished work that I was knitting on for 10 months. Of course, I was knitting on other projects. I think I knitted like 3 sweaters meanwhile, but just for you to know that I am so proud of what I did and I cannot believe of what I've knitted. So let's begin with this. This is a hoodie for my husband, and this is a pattern that is called Hoodie Doo by Olena Sitalkina, a Ukrainian designer. The pattern has 2 versions, female and male versions, that you actually have to purchase separately because they look absolutely the same, but they are built in a little bit of a different way. And the languages that are available is English, Ukrainian, and Russian, so you have to choose the language that you want and only then you're buying the pattern. I took 6 months to actually think about this project before starting, and I took 4 months to actually choose the yarn. So I decided to go for Tynn per Gynt by Sandnes Garn, and the second strand was Alpakka Følgetråd, also from Sandnes Garn. So Sandnes Garn per Gynt is 100% Norwegian wool, which is a fingering weight, and Alpakka Følgetråd is 100% alpaca. I don't know if it's baby alpaca, but it feels quite soft. I cannot wear this yarn next to skin. Personally, it's still pokey to me, but I can easily wear with some very thin long sleeve and this hoodie on top if I were to knit this for myself. And initially the idea was that this hoodie is going to be also a hiking hoodie. Now that I'm holding this in my hands and feeling its weight, I don't think it's going to be a hiking hoodie, maybe for a one-day hike when you don't really care about the weight in your backpack and you come back home the same day. But I was thinking more of a multi-day hike. Like last year we did Tour de Mont Blanc with my husband. It's quite a huge hike, and high up in the mountains it got really cold. We were sleeping in the middle of the ice sometimes. So this hoodie would be really perfect there, but it's really heavy. So I bought overall 8 balls of Tynn per Gynt and 4 balls of Alpakka Følgetråd, but I ended up spending exactly 7 balls of Tynn per Gynt and only 3.5 of Alpakka Følgetråd. But as you can see, I don't have the pocket in the front. So it is a woolly garment, but if you shake it, if you move it, it's very nice drape. That's because of alpaca. Alpaca has a very beautiful silk-like drape. I really like that. So alpaca filled up the spaces and is very thin, fluffy thread. It actually reminds me a little bit of mohair, and you feel like it's still a sturdy garment, but still with fluff and still with lightness and still with warmth. I've also heard that if you treat per Gynt really well, either this fingering version or DK version, you can actually pass your items to the next generations. So even though I'm so happy about the yarn and everything, I do want to speak about my first challenge and my first advice. 2 strands of yarn for this project is a challenge, especially when you do folded hems over here. You fold over the fabric and you attach it to the main garment with a kitchenery stitch. I pick a very dark yarn and it's 2 strands. And when I was sewing up with a kitchenery stitch 1000 stitches on my needles, I got so tired in terms of my eyes. Even if it was daytime, but not, you know, extremely perfect lighting, I did have to use my lights for knitting. And alpaca, the second thread, eventually got exhausted and got broken because it's quite a fluffy, thin thread. And if you pull with this many different thousands times as you're doing the kitchenery stitch, you're exhausting the second strand. And I don't think second strand was a good solution at all. Now, advice number 1 is that you pick light color yarn, either light gray, light beige, anything that is quite nicely visible so you can actually see your stitches. But if you're up for the challenge and you want to repeat my version, go for the lighter options. Per Gynt and Alpakka Følgetråd has many different colors that are light, many different shades of cream, shades of gray, and so on. Advice number 2 is to make a big swatch, 15 to 15 centimeters, and block it to measurements. So in my case, it was a complete mess with tension. The original tension is 23 stitches per 10 centimeters, and it was all over. I started with the correct gauge, then in the middle of the torso it was already 25 or 26 stitches. Here in the bottom it was already 27 stitches or so. And in the hood, I went completely mad. I don't know what happened to me. I was 28 stitches per 10 centimeters instead of 23. I was quite mad at myself, but still, tension is changing, and I was picking up this garment after 3 months of break or so, after 1 month, and it's not easy to keep on the tension. So I'm just very lucky that this yarn allowed me to stretch it. The yarn really relaxed a lot, and in some points I even have 22 stitches per 10 centimeters, which is amazing. But as I was knitting it, it was a disaster. I was like, what am I doing? Here's one tension, here's another. Hood is like 10 centimeters more narrow than the original version. And I was just freaking out that I'm working so much and I will not like the finished work. The pattern has 3 languages, as I already said, and my version was knitted in Russian. Every single aspect where it's a bit complicated is linked to a really nice video. She actually has a YouTube channel with all of the techniques and tutorials for her patterns. I can't promise anything about English version because obviously I did not see the pattern, I did not see the tutorials and which language are they, but it should be all clear because I know quite a few people actually knitted the English version. So what's really cool about the pattern is that you open the file and there are sizes linked to Google Drive files, and you choose your size, you click on it, and you see a whole pattern written just in your numbers. So you don't have to go through the numbers, you will never get confused, and since the pattern is extremely detailed with a lot of technical drawings, measurements, and so on, you don't want to get lost in numbers. So let's start with the construction finally. This is a contiguous saddle shoulder construction. So you see these 2 saddles here. They're not normal saddles, they're extending their width towards the shoulder. So usually we're used to saddle shoulders where you just, increase at the same rate from 2 saddles back and forth, and then you just knit on the round and the sleeves. This is a bit different because you also do increases inside the saddles, outside the saddles, and you use different types of increases. I learned so many new skills and I was really excited to knit this because I felt like I'm really upgrading while knitting on this item. So you cast on stitches here at the back and you start going back and forth, creating these saddles and increasing slowly the depth of the neck and width of the saddles. And you're going back and forth until you're able to connect here in the round. So here in the round, as you're connecting, she's telling you to mark the middle of the body. And I skipped it. I was like, well, I'll do it later. And I really regret it because when I finished the entire body and it was time to actually start the hood, you had to really find the middle, and the stitches are dark and I don't really understand where is exactly the middle because it matters where you attach your hood, right? And also the same in the back, you had to mark the back. And I was like, why did I skim this? So advice number 2 is to not skip the instructions and don't really make many modifications to the project. Everything is perfect about this garment and she did take her time to create this, like any other pattern that she's releasing. And every single instruction makes sense. So after you connect in the round, you start going in the round while increasing for the sleeves. But instead of doing at every second row the same amount of increases, like we're used to in Petite's pattern or my favorite things, there are different rates of increases, and sometimes you do increases only in the front or only in the back, a different amount of rows in between each other. So you cannot just relax and knit on it mindlessly. You do need to look at the chart and you do need to follow where you're at every row. So also I forgot to say that there are charts and there are written instructions, and the charts are super amazing. I've never seen such smart, detailed charts with amount of stitches in every section. Like, it's brilliant. You have to see that pattern. So after you're done forming the sleeves, just like in most patterns, we separate for sleeves, we cast on stitches here under arms, and we keep on knitting the body in the round. Here's where I did my first modification. Until then, I did everything according to the pattern, row by row, stitch by stitch. But here in the bottom, when I was here, you could say next to the belly button, he said, is my hoodie going to shrink a little bit towards the bottom? I would like that. And I was like, really good that you told me that, because that's the time to actually start doing it. So I did 3 rounds of decreases on every 4th row, and per round I decrease only 2 stitches. So 1 stitch on the side here and 1 stitch on the side here. It's not so much actually, but still it looks nice. I don't really see how it goes narrow, but it's nice. After I did my decreases, I did something nice, and depending on the composition of the body of the man that you're knitting for, you can take this into account. So for example, if the man has a big back, most men has back a bit more voluminous than the front, especially when they sit and they relax, and if they have a big back, the fabric is going to jump from the back. And this hoodie is intended to be warm and be worn in the mountains or in cold days, so I wanted to make sure that he's going to be warm and the wind is not going to go under his back, right? So I did short rows on the back. I did 6 turns here, just back and forth, back and forth. I did wrap and turn methods. It's one of my favorite methods, and she's using wrap and turn methods, I think, everywhere in this pattern. So it looks really nice because if you look at the sides, it looks quite different. Here you could see quite a great difference, and it looks really beautiful as for me. The same goes for the option if the man has a belly. You then want to make sure you add short rows in the front to compensate for the shrinkage of the fabric, because the fabric is going to be pulled by the volume. So then I knitted the sleeves according to the pattern, amount of decreases, the raise of decreases, and I knitted the sleeves very, very long, so when he's raising the hand, it still covers his hands, again, because it needs to be a warm garment. And when his arm is down, it a bit collects in the bottom and creates this little harmony, which is absolutely fine for me. When it's cold, he can pull the garment towards his fists and it's going to warm him up. Also, when he was trying the garment on thousands of times before I started the folded hem, I asked where he wants the hoodie to hit him, at what length. And then I added 7 more centimeters to the length that he mentioned, because I knew I will wash the garment and then I will stretch it a lot and that will shrink the garment up. And the least thing I want is for him to constantly pull the garment down because he's cold or he is uncomfortable. So advice number 4 would be to block your garment as many times as you want. Don't rush and don't, feel rushed to finish it, because the consequences would be way more painful than to just wash the garment. So I blocked this garment 3 times. 2 times the body and 1 time the hood. I was so shocked how the fabric has transformed, and I was so happy to then, cast on stitches for the sleeve and keep going on. Then when I reached the bottom before doing this folded hem, I added 7 centimeters, and here would be ideal to block it again to actually see how the fabric has been transformed. And I got a bit lazy here and I regret it a little bit. Luckily everything is good, but still I had to block it before doing this folded hem, because before doing it you want to make sure that you're satisfied with the length and the width of the garment. So if you're not happy with something, you can either rip back or add the additional fabric. And the same goes for the sleeves. Like when you need the sleeves, you can either block them separately or you can already block again the whole garment, and it's fine. The yarn is going to feel good even after so many times that you wash it. Advice number 5 would be to knit hood right after you split for sleeves. So finish your yoke, split for sleeves, knit maybe 5 centimeters of the body, put this on hold, cut the yarn and start the hood, because at this point you still have a lot of excitement and a lot of patience for this project, and your tension is not that far, because by the time I reached to the bottom, my tension changed so much, and of course 10 months took me to complete this project. The tension will be different, either more loose or more tight, and when you're connecting the hood to the yoke, you want to make sure that the tension is the same. I struggled a lot because the yoke was way more wide than the actual hood, no matter how much I was trying to stretch it during the block. I really struggled connecting it, and it would be way easier if I would still have similar tension and I would knit the hood first. So the hood is knitted top down. It is a very beautiful shape of the hood. It doesn't have a style of a sweatshirt, like with a big bulk on the back of the head. Instead, it has a more straight, classic appearance, which I actually prefer. I'm very shocked of how smart every single detail is. So you started from top down, and I had to start it twice because I was not following the instructions correctly. I was just confused, but it's not the fault of the pattern. Again, it's my fault because I've never knitted this before, and the logic was really not familiar to me, and I had to start it twice. You start with a Judy's Magic cast on, and then you do a lot of different manipulations to then start knitting back and forth, just like that. And you shape the back of the head, then you knit straight, then you shape the bottom of the head, like decrease a little bit, and then you shape 2 front triangles. And my main challenge while knitting the hood was my tension. It was crazy at this point, 28 stitches per 10 centimeters instead of 23. And in the width, I was missing 10 centimeters. And I did not believe that I can stretch the fabric to that extent. So what I did is I made him try the hood. I actually attached it with some needles towards the yoke, And it was so clear that he is missing a lot, and he has a very long neck. So for the hood, you have 3 lengths in the pattern, suggested for 175, 185, or 190, something like that, like for different heights of the men. And I chose the last height, like for the tallest man, and then I even added 12 more rows to the whole garment. So I did decreases here, and then I did 12 more rows, and only then I started to knit these triangles down that connect to the hood. So that actually helped because I accounted again for stretching, and when I stretched the fabric I was measuring it, and I was missing only 2 centimeters in width, and in length it was absolutely perfect. So again, just luck, but why to play with fire when you can just pick the right tension and control your tension, and maybe don't put this project so much in the whip box and avoid all of these struggles with the tension. But the biggest challenge of this whole entire project started when I was attaching the hood to the body. This is the most complicated part for me, not because it's so technically complicated, it's because you actually need to insert the yoke into the pocket of the hood. So when you're done with knitting the hood, from 2 sides of the fabric, you're creating like pocket fabric on top and fabric in the bottom. Then you're washing it, you're blocking it, and actually steaming this little pocket that has open stitches fixed with additional thread, and only then you're drying this hood and you're attaching it to the body. I do not recommend skipping this step at all because the fabric is rolling up heavily, and then when you're done, you're inserting the yoke into the pocket and start creating seams. So you see there is a seam right at the bottom of the pocket. You're creating this with a needle, tapestry needle. And my biggest challenge was to make sure that the hood is attached to the yoke correctly, not twisted to the side or to the left. And again, as I already said, the fabric of the yoke was bigger, so I had to like collect it in a little harmony at correct rate, somehow guessing it, making sure I'm attaching the hood correctly. And at some point I'm trying the hood and I'm already halfway, and I'm realizing that the center of the hood is actually shifted a little bit, and I'm going mad because I know I'm not going back. And to go back, I don't know if it's even possible. Probably it is possible, but the amount of headache, the amount of stress you will have to have is too much. So what I did go back a little bit, maybe 3 centimeters. And I started to create harmony way more intensively to make sure I'm fitting the hood in the correct way. So my advice would be that as you're doing the seam, try this hood like 5 times on. As you're attaching it, constantly keep trying it on and make sure the shoulders are very symmetrical as you're doing it. So you're making sure that the hood is sitting up correctly. In the end of the day, it looks exactly in the center, and I'm really happy with this. So after you created the seam here in the front, you're doing then similar stuff at the back, but in the back you're doing the kitchenery stitch, attaching the pocket, the back pocket of the hood towards the seam that you created in the front. And here is a very, very important tip that is actually not specified in the pattern, but I think it's a really cool idea. When you're doing this front seam, this, you know, these little stitches that go completely horizontally towards the fabric, when you're doing this seam with a tapestry needle, pick up additional thread that is very contrasty. It could be a very simple ultra lace weight thread, because when I was connecting here the back pocket towards the seam, I did not see what I'm doing. I'm going to insert the picture. It was freaking madness. I was with knitting lights, I was very concentrated. Everything is already felted a little bit after blocking, you know, and knitting the whole garment for 10 months. And I was going mad, and to find those stitches that you created was quite complicated. On the sample, on the video that she's demonstrated, it was quite clear, but in my case, it was not clear at all, and it would be really nice if I would just pick one contrast thread as I was creating that stitch. So very important tip. And also here at the back, make sure that you're attaching everything in the straight correct way, because also you're kind of guessing which stitch you're knitting at, and you want to make sure that everything is straight and nice. So this was my biggest fear, to attach the hood and realize that it's actually shifted and is pulling one side of the hood. Madness. But I am so happy. I am so extremely grateful for destiny that with all of my mistakes, I ended up with a perfect garment. Another mistake I did is I forgot to do holes for the cords. So if you wish, you can insert the cords to make it look even more like a real hoodie. I will do that. I will just insert it into the double knit fabric. but it would be so nice to actually have the holes. And I realized that I don't have the holes. I forgot to make them quite when I was high enough to actually make them. I don't know why I didn't do them in the end. So in your knitting life, you will remember this project, and I do recommend that you try this out. We're going to Switzerland for my birthday. I'm having birthday on 22nd of August. I'm getting 30 years old, and we're going for a very big hiking trip. I do want to see him wear this in the mountains and really have this satisfaction to my brain, seeing my man wearing the hoodie that I needed for 10 months in one of the most beautiful places on earth. I was in Switzerland 6 years ago. I hiked a lot in Zermatt, and I really miss those places, and I'm very much ready to explore so much more of Switzerland in terms of nature. So the next work that I finished is socks. It's my pattern, and I did promise the tutorial for these socks quite a long time ago, and I really apologize for those who actually wait for it. I know a few people messaged me that they bought the yarn, that they're waiting. The tutorial is going to be out. I filmed the tutorial on my phone. I was recording my entire year here on YouTube with my phone. I recorded it on the phone with this brown yarn. I did my best. At that point, I did my best. And eventually, as I was recording it, I realized that this is not a tutorial that I want to release. It was not so nice. It was not so clear in terms of appearance and clarity of the image. The hands were on the air, and they actually have to be placed in the table, so the focus is not swimming. So now I'm recording with my camera, and when I started to record with camera, I realized I don't want to release a tutorial on my phone and that quality, and my channel and my viewers deserve the best quality. So I was quite sad to realize that the tutorial is not going to be released, and I will just show you the finished work. But I bought another yarn in lighter color, and the tutorial is going to be filmed with this new camera that I'm filming right now, and I'm quite happy about it. So the tutorial is coming. Now I'm just going to only show you the finished work of this version. So these are very beautiful socks, and I am calling them Braidy ripped socks. So as you can see, there is very thick rip in the front and in the back of the sock. And that consists of different amount of stitches. So you have a very wide stripe here in the front and two smaller stripes in the sides. In the back, you only have these stripes and the cuff, and you don't have at the bottom of the foot. So this socks is very beginner friendly, and it's knit with a sport weight yarn on 2mm needles. And while it may look really weird to knit with sport weight on 2mm needles, I really like how the rip looks in these conditions, because I tried this pattern in different yarn with more stitches, but the rip did not look well at all. It was just messy. So this thick, beautiful round yarn creates a very neat long lines without any imperfections, and after blocking they end up being even more beautiful. So the sock is knit cuff down with a strong heel construction. Is my favorite heel construction. And as you can see, I don't know if you can actually see, they're knitted differently, like they have two different sizes. One of them is smaller than the other. The same reason with the hoodie, like the tension is really changing with time, and as you can see, it got way more tight. I started the second sock and I realized that I'm knitting tight. I ripped it off. It was like this, of the cuff knitted, and I started again, you know, training myself to knit more relaxed, because the first sock is knitted in a way more relaxed way, and I still failed. The sock is still way more small. I don't know how it works. I was really conscious about my tension and I still couldn't make it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to block it and it's going to stretch. I stretch it heavily, and this is 70% merino and 30% polyamide. The yarn is Rosarios4 Meia in the color 07, by the way. And so I don't know what to do, because when I try these socks on, and now these are socks that are going to be for me, I do feel the difference and it really bothers me. So I don't know, I'll probably rip this off, but I don't know if to unravel the first sock that is way more loose or the second that is way more tight. I think it makes sense to unravel the first sock since my tension is now way more tight. But let me know, are you also like me who cannot relax and just let it be? I know myself, I'm going to constantly look at them and think, oof, maybe I should redo them. Maybe I should have reknit this. You know, recording a tutorial was quite energy demanding. In my head, it was way more easy, but I don't have experience recording tutorial, but I do like a good tutorial and I need a lot from video tutorials before. So I have quite high expectations and zero experience in recording tutorial. Now I have an experience recording, and the second time would be of course better. So the yarn for the tutorial that I picked is the same yarn, Rosarios4 Meia. but in the color 23, which is a very beautiful dusty rose color. And if you want to knit these socks, get yourself some nice yarn, either this one or any other sport weight, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't, so you don't miss the tutorial when it's out, and it is going to be out soon, before autumn starts. All right, let's keep going with some very exciting work in progress. Oreum Sweater by Knitter's Soul. Look at this gorgeous cabled design. Oreum Sweater is a Korean pattern that is available in English, and it is a top-down seamless raglan. So very interesting that such a complicated stitch pattern with a lot of things going on is just a top-down raglan. Really, really nice. So I'm knitting this out of Jensen from Isager, which is 100% wool, that is very lightly spun and has a lot of air in it, so it's super lightweight, and it is a light DK weight yarn. And the second strand I'm holding it with is a cashmere on silk with 10% of elastan. So you have 71% of brushed cashmere, 19% silk, and 10% of elastan. This is an Italian yarn on cone, and the name of the yarn is Cariaggi SENSE. But if you want similar combination and you don't have access to this yarn, you can use Lank Cashmere Dreams, which is also a lace weight yarn, together with this one. This one is available everywhere. And I'm still thinking I will do the collar maybe in a different yarn that is very soft. I have some similar shades yarn in the fingering weight, like for example knitting for olive in pearl gray color, like many different options. So I think it could be a good idea to knit 2 strands of knitting for olive plus this cashmere for the collar. Maybe of course it will look in slightly different shade, but it would not eat me here at the neck. So let's get to the construction and overall experience. It is knit top down. You start at the back, forming the depth of the neck, and you just go back and forth without doing any German turns. Just go back and forth flat, and then you connect in the round. After that you connect it in the round, you see this little gap here. It's because you just turn and you start to knit in a different direction. So I guess I will have to seam this hole up right after I finish the garment before picking up stitches for the sleeves. So the pattern is extremely clear. There's charts and with some directions that are written. So there is no like written instructions stitch by stitch. You do need to know how to read the chart, but she explains you how to read the chart actually from what side to which. And for me, I never knit a charted pattern like that and so many cables at once. And I can do it and I could follow it with no issues. So I think any of you who can pay attention can also do. I don't find any problem with that. And I didn't find any mistakes in the pattern, and I was quite afraid to knit from a Korean designer because I usually knit from European and Ukrainian designers, and the style of writing, the way of arranging things could be so different, but surprisingly it's amazing. Really, really good job. The first challenge that I had is I could not meet the gauge on recommended needles. It was 5mm needles, I think. And the weight of the pattern was a worsted weight. I don't know what's the issue and why is it so, but just for you to know that if you want to knit this pattern, don't rush to buy worsted weight yarn because probably it will not fit. So after I could finally hit the gauge, and instead of 5mm needles, I'm knitting on 3.5. I'm knitting the whole garment and I'm realizing that the size 1 is not going to be fine at all. I was trying this on and I realized that the yoke is finishing right under my underarm and I still need to connect for the sleeves. And it's going to be absolutely not the look that I'm going for. I wanted this to be with quite a good amount of positive ease with white torso and white sleeves, and I really freaked out. And the reason why I freaked out is because I thought probably this 10% of elastan is making their job, so maybe it's shrinking the fabric a bit because you see it's quite elastic as I'm stretching it, and I'm questioning maybe it was a bad idea. But anyways, I decided to go for the size 2 because luckily the size 2 only extends the body and the whole top is the same. Size 3 and 4 already has different amount of stitches for the neck, so I cannot go for size 3, but I can still go for size 2 and that will add me like maybe 5 more centimeters. And then I will block the item again and stretch it again, stretch my best to the measurements that I want and actually see what's happening, because yarn that has elastan can give quite a significant shrinkage. But my swatch was quite good. It was 7 to 12 centimeters or so, and after the wash it did not change the size at all. Of course, I understand that a big garment and a swatch can behave in a completely different way, but still, I'm regretting that I didn't do the bigger swatch, like for real. My next work in progress is also self-drafted sock that I want to release a tutorial for YouTube. The reason why I'm doing that and I don't only knit from patterns that exist is because I could not find the pattern for the construction that I wanted and for the tension that I have. I like to knit my socks on 2mm needles that are quite tight, so they last a lot and they're actually warm. And I like the fabric that is a bit dense. I don't like these loose stitches, especially in socks. I also wanted a folded hem here in the top. I wanted a slip stitch pattern here and the strong heel construction that I never saw in any pattern. And here at the bottom of the toe, you have slip stitch. So as you're wearing the socks, it's not wearing out very fast because the slip stitch is a way more thick fabric and way more elastic fabric than a stockinette, and it lasts for longer. So since I couldn't find any pattern for my tension and overall this construction with these stitches, I created this. And also this yarn has a very slow gradient, so a normal heel flap and gusset construction would cause me a huge color breakage, and I knitted this heel 3 times. First I knitted normal heel flap and gusset, and then I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to break the beautiful gradient, and this is what happened. It did not look beautiful. So then second time I knitted a different heel construction. I don't know the name of it, but I'm going to use it in my next tutorials. And the third attempt was this one, and finally it looks freaking perfect. I love that. And I had so much joy when I finished it, and I was like, what is this? This looks so beautiful, and it has the perfect appearance and perfect density. So knitting tutorial is coming with all of the lessons learned right after the pink one is going to be out. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but my next work in progress is blanket for me. I started an entire blanket for me, but with an intention that if I have a baby, and I plan, of course, in the future to have a baby, I can use it for the baby as well. Not for the small baby, but maybe from 3-year-old to 7-year-old, because the blanket is really wide. I think it's going to be like 180 in width and maybe 170 in length. I don't know exactly how is the width because I'm still knitting this in quite a shrinked mode and I can't really estimate how wide is that, but I picked size 3 that promises to be 150 centimeters in width, and then I added 3 more pattern repeats that maybe is like this width, so maybe 30 more centimeters, so exactly 180 centimeters. So the designer's name is Christina and she's appearing on Ravelry as Yarn Sonata. So overall I did 3 modifications to this pattern. First is that I added 3 pattern repeats to extend the width. Second is that I added 4 more rows to the bottom section of the garter stitch, and that's because I noticed that in the samples I saw on Ravelry, both designer's version and other, that the bottom garter stitch looks way more narrow than the side one. I look at the pattern and it says the same amount of stitches both for the bottom part and for the side part. So then I made a conclusion that the blanket is simply stretching the bottom part and you need to compensate it with adding more rows. And I'm quite happy with how it looks. It still looks a bit more narrow than the side. So I still have 10 stitches only here on the side and 14 stitches here in the bottom. And the third modification I did is that I added double knit stitch edge to the side of the whole blanket. So in the pattern you only knit back and forth normally, like knit on the right side and knit on the wrong side, but that finishing creates like little knots in the side, which I didn't much like, so I wanted to go for this little braid. Look at this. It looks way more beautiful in my opinion, and that correlates with the cast on edge because cast on edge also creates this very beautiful braid. So I like it so much. It looks very nice, neat and sturdy, and I will link the tutorial of how you do this type of edging in the description box, so I don't have to explain it here. So it's very beautiful. I'm very happy of how it turns out, and I have to say that I'm really enjoying this yarn, except that it has so many knots in each ball that really bothers me. But then I bought this yarn actually at 2.75 euros and I cannot complain. So this is 100% superwash merino and is very bouncy. And since it's very bouncy, it does not create any tension on my wrists. And I'm really happy that I went with the recommended yarn. So I have bought 23 balls in general, and I already used 4. This is my 4th ball. And look at this, I only knitted this much. So I guess I will have to buy more yarn soon, and I need to hurry up to catch the same lot. So the blanket is not going to be cheap at all, but I hope it's worth it. All right, we're done with my works in progress, and I want to speak about my next cast on that I actually treated myself to after I finished the hoodie. The next day, I was like, I can knit whatever I want from the yarn that I want. I truly deserve that. So I went to my stash and I found baby yak medium from Myak Fibers or Tibetan Fibers. It is so beautiful. I will see if you cannot see the fluff, I will attach the picture. And it does release a fluff just like cashmere. It does not irritate my skin at all. And it is so luxurious, like you do feel like you're knitting with luxurious yarn. Yak is extremely warm fiber, and I'm going to knit with this a neck warmer. So I have 4 of these, so 200 grams, and I want to knit Terrazzo Neck by Petite. It's actually in my winter knitting plans, and if you're already looking for cold season knitting inspiration, you can check that video out. I will be linking the link in the description box. I postpone it until summer, and this autumn I want to be warm. I'm wearing a coat and I usually get really cold, and I like that this neck is double folded. It has twisted stitch that adds additional thickness, and it's actually quite long. On Petite knits, on Mette, it looks quite long, so I don't know how it's going to be on my torso. Probably hit me somewhere up the belly button. So the recommended needle size in pattern is 4.5mm needles, and I was only able to achieve gauge on 4mm needles on my wooden Symphony Knit Pro needles. So before blocking, I was just 1 stitch tighter in terms of gauge, and after blocking it relaxed a bit and I'm perfectly on gauge. So I'm touching it next to my chest and I already imagine how amazing the neck warmer is going to be. I'm really looking forward to autumn season because I don't like summer knitting, and I'm so excited to cast this on. Now the acquisitions. I have the yarn that I bought myself, and I have a very, very gorgeous gift from a viewer, which is so luxurious, so beautiful, so I want to show it to you. So the yarn that I bought is Alpakka Socks 4-ply, which is a 70% alpaca and 30% polyamide, and it says that it's easy wash alpaca. I don't know if it's suitable for machine washing. This yarn is presented like a sock yarn, but I don't want to knit socks with this. It is so soft. It is Suri alpaca, which is a different breed of alpaca that has these very beautiful long hairs, and the hair of Suri alpaca is way softer than a regular one. I want to knit either a scarf or gloves or combination of both. Something there, I still haven't decided, but I really wanted to try this yarn and I couldn't avoid buying this beautiful squishy basic color. Alright, the last and most exciting part for this video is a very generous, gorgeous gift from one of the viewers of my channel. Her name is Yaena or Yaena. This wonderful woman messaged me with a few recommendations regarding knitting for olive cashmere and just shared her experience. We started then discussing some other knitting related things. Ended up speaking about other stuff that is very important to both of us. We share quite a lot of interests as a result. And we ended up having a very wonderful chat in Instagram, and we're actually chatting on a regular basis right now. So that is very amazing in the first place, that I have a very interesting person to speak with that I met on the internet. And eventually she said, do you want me to send you the samples of the cashmere and some other samples? I was like, okay, sure, if you wish, you could share them. And eventually she said that she's going to also put the mohair in the package that didn't suit her daughter. Like, she bought this intentionally for her daughter in the first place. And I was very excited to receive this package, and finally it arrived. And I didn't expect that I will release some tears opening the package, because besides the wonderful yarn samples, I also found 7 skeins of hand-dyed mohair. Look at this. This is Art Yarns, is their silk mohair, and you have 300 meters per 25 grams, and the color is H20. This is a very beautiful variegated yarn that consists of beige, pinkish, and gray blue tones. This is so beautiful, and it is so soft. And it's enough for a huge project. It felt nice and weird at the same time that I just received it for nothing. Like, we don't know each other in real life. So I was so shocked of the generosity of this person, and I'm extremely grateful for these type of people in my community. So I will knit with this yarn. I will remember this person and the project, and this is going to warm my heart for many years. Thank you so much. I'm super grateful. Overall, I'm grateful for all of you who are watching my videos, who support me in any different way that you can. Like under the video, comment, your wonderful messages on Instagram that you send me sometimes with a lot of nice words, nice ideas for the next videos, and just your presence here on my channel, because my channel is growing. I'm really happy, and I don't feel like I'm speaking to a camera now. I now feel like I'm speaking to people. Thank you all very much for being here. This June was exactly 1 year since I started this channel, and I cannot believe of how much this channel had taught me, how far it went, and where it's going. Let me know what you're knitting on right now. I really love going through the comments and getting inspired also by your knitting. Enjoy your wonderful knits, and I'm hoping to see you soon in my next video.